Bruchim haboim. Welcome everyone. We're about to begin Be'ezras Hashem together on Daf Mem Zayin Amud Aleph at the very top. The previous parak at the end of the Mishnah had spoken about the Kohen Gadol's avodah of the Ketores on the Yom Kippurim. Namely, that he takes a machta and he walks up the kevesh, the ramp of the Mizbeach, the outer Mizbeach, and forming one of the pyres, he takes a shovelful of gacheles, of coals. Then he leaves the Mizbeach and he goes down and he places that machta on the fourth row in the Azara, next to where the Kohen is mixing the blood from the par. The Mishnah now continues to describe the avodas hakitoris. Says the Mishnah, open up the fifth parak as follows: Hoitzio loi es hakaf ves hamachte. They take out for him the kaf and the machta. Chofan maloi choifno v'nosan l'toich hakaf. He then takes two hands and he fills them up with kitares, and he places them, that kitares, into the kaf. Hagodol lefi godloi v'hakoton lefi kotnoi. According to the size of the Kohen Gadol, if he has bigger hands, then the amount of kitares is larger. And of course, if he has smaller hands, then the amount of the kitares is smaller. V'kach haisa midasa, and this is its measurement. The Gemara will explain these words. The Mishnah concludes, Notal es hamachta biyaminoi ves hakaf bismolo. The Kohen Gadol then proceeds to take the machta in his right hand, the kaf in his left hand, and he begins to then walk toward the Kodesh HaKadoshim. As the Gemara, we just said in the beginning of our Mishnah that they bring him out the kaf and the machta. As the Gemara, machta, tanale, it was taught in the previous Mishnah, notales hamachte ve'ola l'rosh hamizbeach v'choyse v'yored. The Kohen Gadol, he takes the machta and he goes up to the mizbeach. He then proceeds to take a shovel full of coals and then he goes down. Is mashma, he already has now a machta that's filled with coals. Why does it say over here in the beginning of our Mishnah, subsequently, they bring him the kaf and the machta. He already has a machta and it's filled with coals, and he puts it on the fourth row of the Azara. Answers the Gemara, there are two different machtos. Hasa machta de gecholim v'hocha machta de ktaris. In the previous Mishnah, we're talking about that he went up to the Mizbeach and he took out a machta, a shovel full of coals. Then he went down from the Mizbeach and he placed it in the fourth row of the Azara. Our Mishnah is speaking about where he takes a kaf, they bring him a kaf, and a machta. The machta over here is a machta that's filled with kitaris, that came from the house, the base avtinas, the experts in producing the kitaris. The Tanya, like it says in the Brisa, hoitziu loy kaf reikon melishkas hakelim. They give him a kaf that is empty from the lishkas hakelim, umach the gedush shel kitaris melishkas beis avtinas. And they also provide for him a machta, a shovelful of kitaris that was provided by the house of avtinos who produced the kitaris. So the Mishnah goes on to say, what does he do? Chafon maloi chafnov. He takes two hands and he fills them up with the kitaris from the machta. And then he then puts it, that kitaris that is now in his hands, he then puts it into the kaf. According to the size of the Kohen Gadol's hands is the amount of kitaris. Ask the Gemara, kaf b'yom kippurim lamali. What do we need this kaf for? After all, he fills up his hands with the kitaris that he got from the machta that was filled with kitaris from Beis Avtinas. What do we need the kaf for? Let him take the hands full of kitaris and go and walk into the Kodesh HaKadoshim with it. The pasuk that the Gemara now quotes says, "V'lokach meloi hamachta." He takes the full amount of the shovel, a shovel full, gach le'esh me'al hamizbeach l'nifnei Hashem, of coals, u'meloi chofn of kitaris samin dako, and hands full of kitaris And then he proceeds to go to the Kodesh HaKadoshim. So what do we need the kaf for? Asked the Gemara. Maloi chofnov vehevi amarachmana. Answers the Gemara, Mishum Deloy Efshar. It's not possible for the Kohen Gadol to have 2 hands full of kitares and then also have the machta filled with coals. How is he going to carry it into the Kodesh HaKadoshim? The Hechi Navin, how is he going to then do that? Nile v'hoda Nile, habo achas amrachman v'lo shtei habos. If you're going to suggest that he enters the Kodesh HaKadoshim once, then he leaves and he enters a second time, well, the Torah says that he only goes once. It says one havo, vehevi, in singular, he does it once. And therefore, how does he then go ahead and take the 2 handfuls of ktares together with the machta of gacheles into the Kodesh Kodashim if he doesn't use a kaf? The Gemara wants to suggest nishkelei lektares bechoifnov v'nachte lemachta alav le'el. Let him take then the ktares, which is full with his handful of ktares, and place then the machta on top of it. And then he shall enter the Kodesh Kodashim. Ask the Gemara, Ki mata hasim heichi le'avid. When he then enters the Kodesh Kodashim, then what is he supposed to do? Nishkelei mishinel v'nachte lemachta. Should he then take the machta with his teeth off his hands that are having filled with kitaris, and should place then the shovel, the machta of gecholim, on the ground with his teeth? Ask the Gemara, hashta now lifnei melech bosav adam ein oisin kain. It's not going to be fitting to do that in front of a king of flesh and blood. Lifnei melech malchei amloch HaKadosh Baruch Hu al achas kama v'kama. When he's now performing the avodas hakitaros in the Kodesh HaKadoshim before HaKadosh Baruch Hu, the melech malchei amlochim, would that be considered to be something that is fitting? Certainly not. Hilkach loy efsher, therefore it's not possible. The kivan de loy efsher avdinan kideshkach menisim. And since it's not possible, therefore, what does he do? He takes his handfuls of kitares, he then puts it into the kaf, he takes the machta in his right hand, the kaf in his left hand, and then he walks into the Kodesh HaKadoshim. Then in the Kodesh HaKadoshim, he then takes the machta and he puts it onto the ground. The kitares, he then takes it and he spills it into his hands. Now he now has kitares, that is his hand full of kitares. Just as we see that the kaf hamachta, the kaf of kitares filled with kitares was held entirely by the Nesim when they offered their nedov for Chanukas HaBayis, Chanukas HaMizbeach. The Mishnah that is quoted now, it says, "Notel es hamachta biyamin ves haskaf b'smol." The Kohen Gadol takes the machta in the right hand and the kaf that's filled with kitares in his left hand, and then he walks into the Kodesh HaKadoshim. Ask the Gemara, we know that the right hand is always more chashuv than the left, and since the kitares is the ikar over here, that's what we're coming to burn, that's the ikar avoida, and therefore he should be carrying the kitares, the kaf, in his right hand, and the machta with the coals in his left hand. Ask the Gemara, Yetzirah ba'ara v'giura b'shmei shmaya. Does the citizen is only on the ground, and the ger, the stranger, is in the shmei shomayim? He has greater esteem. So to over here, why is the machta held in greater esteem, that it's being held in the right hand of the Kohen Gadol, whereas the kaf that has the kitares in the left hand? Zu Maruba, V'zu Moetes answers the Gemara, because this, referring to the machta, is heavier, whereas that which is holding on to the kitares, the kaf, is lighter. And therefore we want to give the Kohen Gadol less tircha, so we'll put the heavier thing in his right hand, namely the machta, and the lighter one in his left hand. The Gemara says, even true when they're both equal in weight, still we won't make a distinction. Why? Because since the machta is filled with coals and is hot, whereas the kitaris is cool, therefore will then put the machta in the right hand and the ketores in the left. Amru alav Rabbi Shmuel ben Kimchis. They said about this Kohen Gadol named Rabbi Shmuel, the son of a woman named Kimchis, Shahaya chayfin arba kavin b'malay chafnav. He had hands that were huge, and he was filling up the ketores with his big hands, and it came out to be 4 kavin, which is greater than the amount of coals, which is only 3 kav. V'oimer kol anoshim zored zerdu v'zored ima alo legag. And he said that all of the women, they were zored zardu, but my mother was zored all the way up to the guy, to the roof. In other words, he's saying that his mother did even more than all the other ladies, causing him to have such big hands. The Gemara explains and asks, what is it referring to when it says Zored Zardu? Ikeda Amrei Be'arson. There are those that say it refers to arson, a certain type of cereal that is nourishing. It's very nourishing, and therefore it's given to somebody who is ill. Whereby his mother, who was pregnant with him, she ate this, which caused him to be very well nourished, and he had big hands. There are those that say it's referring to the shichva zera, the semen that produced him. The Rabbi Abo Rami Ksiv, Rabbi Abo, he threw a contradiction between 2 psukim. On the one, it's written V'tazreini chayil la milchama. One pasuk says V'tazreini chayil la milchama, referring to Hashem is Tazreini, he girds strength for milchama. It's spelled without an aleph. V'ksiv, and it's written Tazreini chayil la milchama, the same word but spelled with an aleph. Hashem girds me with strength for milchama, for battle. Omar David lifnei HaKadosh Baruch Hu, David Melech said before Hashem, HaKadosh Ribbono Shel Olam, Zerisoni v'Zeraztoni. Hashem, you have zoremi, that means you have winnowed me, a reference to the semen, to the shichva zera, that you allowed me to be produced. V'Zerazatani, and you also girded me. And therefore, this is the 2 things that he's referring to, the one spelled with the aleph and one without the aleph. So to over here, when the Kohen Gadol, whose name is Rabbi Shmuel ben Kimchis, he says that he's attributing his greater strength and his big hands to the fact that he has shichva zera that produced him, which was a stronger of potency, and therefore the form of zeresoni, of being winnowed. Amru Alava Rabbi Shimon ben Kimchas. The Gemara goes on to explain about this Kohen Gadol named Rabbi Shmuel, the son of a woman named Kimchis. Pamacha siper deroim im aravi echad b'shuk on Yom Kippurim. Some say it was on Erev Yom Kippurim. He had to speak about an urgent matter to an Arab person in the shuk. V'nitzet sinora mipiv al begodov, and a spittle from the mouth of the Arab, it touched his clothes of the Kohen Gadol, causing him to become tamei, because he has a nachri has the din of a zav, and the spit of the zav is an avatuma. V'nichnas Yisheva v'echov ochiv v'shimesh tachtav, and his brother Yishevov, he entered in his place to be the Kohen Gadol. V'rosa iman shnei kayam gedolim b'yom echad, and their mother Kimchis saw 2 of her sons being a Kohen Gadol on the same day. V'shuv amru alav Rabbi Shmuel ben Kimchis. Further, it was said about Rabbi Shmuel ben Kimchis, Pam achaz yatzav v'siper im hegemon echad b'shuk. One time he had to speak to a Gentile ruler in the shuk. V'nitzet sinora mepiv al begodov, and a similar thing happened. The spittle of his of this nachri, of this ruler, it went on his clothing, on the Kohen of the Kohen Gadol's clothes. V'nichnas Yosef ochi v'shimesh tachtov, and his brother Yosef, he then became the Kohen Gadol in his place. V'rosa iman shnei kohen gedolim b'yom echad, and his mother Kimchis saw 2 of her sons to be the Kohen Gadol on the same day. Ton Rabbanan, the Gemara tells a brayso about this woman Kimchis and how she was zoiche to these 7 children who are Kohanim Gadolim. Shiva bonim hayu lo lekimchi, she had 7 children, v'kula shimshu b'kuna g'doila, and they all served as Kohen Gadol in her lifetime. Omru lo chachamim, the chachamim said to her, ma asis shezachis lekach, what did you do to merit this? Omru lahem, she said to the chachamim, miyomai lo iro karas beisi kal e se'arei. In all my days, I didn't allow the beams of my house to see the locks of my hair. Amru lo, they said to her, harbe osu came v'lo ha'ilu. Many did this and were not zoichet to what she was zoichet to. What is this chus of not allowing the karas beisa to see her hair? So Rashi brings down from the Yishalmi, says Rashi, the following. In Dibra Maschil Laro Koras Beisi, Raisi Betalmud Yerushalmi quotes the Yerushalmi that's saying the following: Kol Kvuda Vas Melech Pnima, Memish Bezois Zohov Levusha. The Pasuk in Tehillim says all of the glory of a daughter of Yisrael, a daughter of a Melech rather, which is referring to a daughter of Yisrael, a princess, is in the inside, is the Pnima, and it's greater than Mishpah Zohov Levusha, than those who wear the golden settings. Isha tsnua ru'uya latzeis mimena kohen godem lavush b'mishpatzes zohov. A woman who's tanua, she is fitting to have come out from her kohen gadol who wears such garments with golden settings. We can perhaps add on to this that just as a woman who is tsanua, kol mfura bas melech pnima, so she is zoichet to ein gadol who does the avoida lifnai v'lifnim in a modest, the most inner part place of the base hamikdash.